Caitlin Clark arrived at Gainbridge Fieldhouse with plenty of attention surrounding the debut of her new signature sneaker, the Caitlin 1, and it didn't take long for the atmosphere to heat up. Moments after Clark made her tunnel entrance, Angel Reese was already showing off her own latest colorway to the cameras, leading many fans to wonder if she had been waiting for that exact spotlight. As the game unfolded, Reese appeared to take things personally, even celebrating after a foul against Clark and drawing more attention after an incident where Clark stepped on her foot and Reese made no effort to pull away. By that point, it felt like the night had become about more than basketball. Instead of simply focusing on the matchup, the rivalry, and the emotions surrounding it seemed to dominate the conversation, with some fans arguing that the officiating only added more fuel to the drama. And with all the debate surrounding the two stars, one question keeps popping up among basketball fans. Why have Angel Reese's sneakers ended up heavily discounted? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.
What's your favorite feature of the Caitlin 1?
I have to pick just one. Oh my gosh. I think the fact that the outside part is C's and the inside part is 2's, but you can only tell close up.
The Caitlin 1 had been developing behind the scenes for quite some time, and on June 17th, Caitlin Clark finally gave fans their first official look. Just one day later, she arrived at Gainbridge Fieldhouse wearing the eye-catching Racer Blue edition for its on-court debut. As she made her way through the tunnel, Clark was even carrying an extra pair in her hands, and the clip spread across social media almost instantly. Before she had a chance to reach the locker room, the videos were already everywhere. Fans paused what they were doing, feeds lit up, and the buzz exploded online. That's the kind of reaction you get when one of the biggest stars in women's basketball introduces the first signature sneaker of her career.
You're debuting the shoes tonight. How do you feel?
I just been smiling all day. I'm super excited.
And what's your favorite part about the shoes?
Favorite part? Oh, it's hard to pick one. I think the Nike swoosh is kind of cool. It's two of them, and then like there's like a hidden CC right there. So kind of sick.
Before getting into everything that happened that night, it's worth looking at what Nike actually created with the Caitlin 1, because the details say a lot about the player behind it. Priced at $140, the shoe sits in a range that's accessible for young fans who might be saving up for their next pair, and every part of the design reflects the way Clark plays the game. From the responsive traction built for quick catch-and-shoot opportunities to the support needed for her signature step-back moves, the sneaker was made with her style in mind. Even the outsole carries the message, "Shoot more threes," a nod to the long-range shots that made her a superstar. Her initials are embroidered on the tongue, adding another personal touch. This wasn't one of those standard partnerships where an athlete simply puts their name on an existing model. Nike designed the Caitlin 1 around a player known for pulling up from well beyond the arc, making sure the shoe matched the demands of her game.
No, I've worn them a few times, but they feel good. Feel ready to go. It is a little different when you are playing in a different shoe and then you switch over, but I've had plenty of time to kind of break them in and get the feel.
Not long after clips of Caitlin Clark's entrance began taking over social media, Angel Reese made her way through the same tunnel with plenty of attention on her as well. Cameras caught Reese showing off a fresh colorway of her own signature sneaker, making sure it was front and center as she walked in. There hadn't been any major Nike announcement earlier in the day, no teaser posts leading up to the game, and no indication that Atlanta had planned a special sneaker reveal for the occasion. That's why the timing immediately caught people's attention. Just as Clark's arrival was becoming one of the biggest talking points online, Reese stepped into the spotlight with a reveal of her own, leading many fans to speculate that the moment wasn't a coincidence. Considering Clark has posted a 5-1 career record against teams featuring Reese, plenty of observers believe Reese pays close attention to what Clark is doing, making the nearly back-to-back entrances impossible for some fans to ignore.
White colors are it. Look at Stephanie White's shoes. Oh, you can't see her name. She's got white on both of the tongues. Yeah,
the shoes. Oh, those are nice.
I'm so pleased at both of you talking about sneakers.
And the story didn't stop with the opposing side. Indiana Fever head coach Stephanie White also drew attention before tip-off. On June 18th, she arrived wearing a custom pair of Nike sneakers featuring her own name, not a standard coaching model or a team-issued colorway. It was a personalized design, and some fans couldn't help but notice the timing, considering the basketball world was focused on the debut of Caitlin Clark's new signature shoe. Whether you view it as pure coincidence or something more deliberate is up for debate, but the detail certainly sparked conversation. By the time the game was about to begin, Clark had already spent the pregame spotlight sharing attention with two separate shoe stories, one coming from the opposing side and another from her own bench. And all of that happened before the opening tip had even taken place.
This season, it's like Stephanie White and the WNBA refs are working together. Anytime Caitlin Clark is on, she gets in immediate foul trouble with ghost fouls where she doesn't touch anybody and there are no challenges whatsoever.
Caitlin Clark wasted no time making her mark in the Caitlin 1. She got on the scoreboard early in the opening quarter, and when she knocked down her first three-pointer of the night, Gainbridge Fieldhouse erupted. The energy inside the arena instantly changed, with the crowd roaring in a way that only happens when fans know they're witnessing a special moment. Indiana entered the matchup with plenty of momentum, having put together a 4-game winning streak while finding its rhythm on both ends of the court. Caitlin Clark had been scoring with impressive efficiency. Aaliyah Boston was consistently overpowering defenders in the paint, and Kelsey Mitchell had been lighting up opposing backcourts from all over the floor. Atlanta was more than capable of competing, but with the game taking place at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, the Fever had every reason to feel confident about extending their streak. What they probably didn't anticipate, however, was a night where many fans would come away believing the officiating played an unusually large role in the outcome.
4 of her fouls, she would have never got the calls if it was the other way around. Ryan Howard one was elbowing her right in the chest. 2 of them, Canada just fell down, and another one of the softest calls you'd ever see. But it's bigger than that. They keep her in check from having one of those amazing games. It limits her ability to play defense. So first of all, if she gets near somebody, she's called for a foul. Second of all, she can't get another foul, so it makes it even worse. Third of all, she can't get minutes in the game because she's in foul trouble.
The officiating became a talking point almost immediately, as Caitlin Clark found herself dealing with foul trouble much earlier than anyone expected. Several whistles sparked frustration among fans, especially on plays that looked questionable when viewed again. Contact that often goes unnoticed in other situations suddenly seemed to draw calls, forcing Clark to spend valuable minutes on the bench when Indiana needed her most. One sequence that stood out involved Jordan Canada, who appeared to lose her footing, yet the foul was still assessed to Clark. Another controversial moment came when Clark attacked the basket with her shoulder, and an Atlanta defender went down dramatically, leading to another whistle that many viewers felt could have just as easily been ruled differently, or not called at all. Regardless of how people interpreted those plays, the result was the same. Clark was sent to the bench twice, and each stoppage seemed to halt Indiana's momentum just as the Fever were trying to build something offensively.
Look at this. This is a 3-point play. You think the refs are going to give her the 3-point play like they did Ryan Howard? No. Instead, they go down and call another foul on Caitlin Clark for what? She used her shoulder, rammed into Caitlin Clark, and fell down. And Stephanie White is still yet to challenge 1 ghost foul out of 20 this year.
Atlanta ended the night with 60 points in the paint, a number that immediately stands out against an Indiana defense that had generally been solid heading into this matchup. That kind of interior production doesn't happen without breakdowns at the rim, but it also becomes much easier when your top perimeter defender is constantly in and out of the game due to early foul trouble. With Caitlin Clark spending extended stretches on the bench after picking up multiple fouls in the first half, Indiana's defensive structure lost its usual balance. Once she was limited, Atlanta's guards and cutters repeatedly attacked the gaps, taking advantage of the space and rhythm disruption that followed.
And then Canada falls down again. Just falls down. Can you imagine? If Caitlin Clark did that, she would never receive a foul. They would say she turns the ball over and the rest would not give her a call.
Indiana finished the night with 17 turnovers, and Atlanta made them pay, turning those mistakes into easy fast break points throughout the game. On top of that, 5 Dream players reached double figures, showing just how balanced their offense was. That's often what happens when a defense is constantly forced into scramble mode, especially when its primary defensive anchor is repeatedly limited by questionable foul trouble. From a coaching standpoint, Stephanie White's decisions left plenty of questions. She used Indiana's challenge at a moment that didn't carry much strategic value, which later left the Fever without any ability to review a far more important call. In the fourth quarter, when Atlanta briefly showed signs of vulnerability, White shifted Caitlin Clark out of the main half-court action and leaned into a 2-player setup with Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell. But Atlanta adjusted quickly and shut it down almost immediately. What stood out most was the lack of counter adjustments afterward. There was little effort to reposition Clark into cleaner offensive situations, where she could operate without constant physical pressure or contested contact, and Indiana never really found a new rhythm once Atlanta took control.
And then this is where it starts. 7 minutes in the second quarter. Look at this. Caitlin Clark takes a freaking elbow to the chest, and they give Ryan Howard a 3-point play instead of an offensive foul.
Caitlin Clark still managed to finish 8 of 17 from the field, putting up 26 points and 7 assists in the process. Whenever she was on the court, she produced at an elite level, consistently creating offense and keeping Indiana in the game. The frustrating part for many fans is that her minutes were limited at key stretches, preventing her from fully extending that impact. On the other side, Angel Reese ended the night with 21 points and 11 rebounds, numbers that reflect a strong physical performance. She battled inside, controlled the glass at times, and played a clear role in Atlanta's dominance in the paint. Those contributions are real, and part of why Atlanta stayed effective down low. But box scores don't always show the full picture of how a game unfolds possession by possession. Beyond the scoring and rebounding, there were constant moments and sequences that are still being debated and replayed by fans long after the final buzzer.
The floor. Shot clock didn't start. That was the reason for the slight delay there. What I thought was cool in looking at Atlanta's history when it comes to teammates who are wanting.
One of the most talked about moments of the night came after a foul call went against Caitlin Clark. From the bench, Angel Reese was seen openly mimicking Clark's reaction in full view of the cameras. It wasn't subtle in any way, and it was clearly visible to everyone in the arena, including the broadcast audience, players on the floor, and fans watching at home. Moments like that don't just happen by accident on live television. They happen because someone is fully aware the cameras are rolling. Then came the separate sequence involving Clark stepping on Reese's foot. Plays like that occur constantly in basketball and are usually nothing more than incidental contact. However, on this occasion, Reese didn't immediately move her foot away, and Clark ended up rolling her ankle on the play. Replays circulating online have led some viewers to argue that there appeared to be enough time and space to avoid the contact altogether, which is why the moment continues to be heavily discussed and reanalyzed.
This is the story tonight. Outscoring the Fever by 2. With that 3-pointer by 5 now, a 19-14 bench advantage. Oz Hillman took a while to pick up her third personal. She got the 2 quickies in the first quarter. And she's got 3 personals now. Caitlin Clark asking about the contact on that, and it looks like, oh yeah.
Caitlin Clark responded the way she usually does in high-pressure moments. She shook it off and stayed in the game. She's been in enough competitive environments to understand that showing pain or frustration only gives the other side more energy. But the situation itself still raised eyebrows, because dealing with a potential ankle issue in a moment where contact could have been avoided doesn't fall under ordinary basketball action. Whether it's coincidence or awareness in real time, the result is the same. Every interaction between them is now magnified, replayed, and debated far beyond the court.
Just complete with how she plays this end of the floor. Shot clock didn't start. That was the reason for the slight delay there. What I thought was cool in looking at Atlanta's history when it comes to teammates who are wanting
It's clear that much of the narrative between Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark has become tightly connected, especially in how their moments seem to intersect whenever the spotlight is brightest. What stands out to some observers is the timing of Reese's biggest reactions, often appearing right when Clark is at the center of national attention. From the sneaker reveal overlap to the on-court interactions being replayed online, fans have pointed out how these moments tend to cluster around Clark's biggest stages. Whether it's intentional or just the intensity of competition.
This is from Atlanta. And she left Kara Lawson speechless. Yes. And wanting more. Right. Caitlin Clark finding more.
Just consistent, but someone that's really impactful as it relates to winning.
Caitlin Clark in the mid-range, gives it back up to Billings. Clark fires for her first three-pointer of the night. Second field goal, 5 points for Jordan Canada. 5 points in 5 minutes. Caitlin Clark looking for it against Pow Pow, spins off of.
The perception has formed that Reese's actions often land in direct response to Clark's spotlight rather than separate from it. Meanwhile, Clark delivered a strong performance in her signature shoe debut, finishing with 26 points and 7 assists against a defense clearly focused on limiting her impact. Through it all, she continued playing her game, while the broader conversation around the night often drifted away from the stat sheet and toward the ongoing storyline between the two players. 4 Indiana players finished in double figures that night, and offensively, the team actually held its own. Kelsey Mitchell led the way with 26 points. Aaliyah Boston followed with 23 points and 8 rebounds. Lexi Hull / Note, original says Cunningham, so keep Cunningham as Kelsey Mitchell. Wait, Cunningham is Sophie Cunningham. Correction, Sophie Cunningham continued her strong stretch from deep, and Caitlin Clark added her own 26-point performance to round things out. And Sophie Cunningham's shooting deserves its own mention. Her three-point consistency has quietly been one of the more important elements of Indiana's recent run, giving the team much-needed spacing on the perimeter. She's not just parked in the corner either. She's moving without the ball, reading the defense, and finding clean looks. Even on a night where things didn't fully go Indiana's way, she continued to deliver from beyond the arc and keep the offense stretched.
No. Sancho Little and Angel McCautry.
Atlanta.
Yeah, so it was if the Dream have and for the Fever. It's been close most of the way. 10 different lead changes, 7 ties. Clark steps in. They came in early and kind of started that trend when Naz Hillman got into foul trouble. Caitlin Clark, second three.
But every time Caitlin Clark was forced to the bench because of foul trouble, Indiana's offensive rhythm completely disappeared. And it wasn't just a dip in pace. It was a full breakdown. The Fever went from moving the ball with purpose and generating shots through motion to holding on to possessions, dribbling into crowded areas, and settling for contested attempts that weren't part of the system. Players like Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull rely heavily on Clark's presence to create cleaner looks, since her gravity pulls defenders and opens up catch-and-shoot opportunities that don't exist otherwise. The moment she went to the bench, Atlanta tightened its defense around Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell, daring the rest of Indiana's roster to beat them from the perimeter. Without Clark stretching the floor and forcing defensive attention from deep, Atlanta was able to load up inside and shrink the space. And without consistent outside shooting to punish that strategy, Indiana struggled to make them pay for it in any meaningful way.
He leaves it short. Get the foul call that she was looking for. Clark back the other way. Caitlin Clark goes glass. 19 for Clark. Way too strong. Good recovery by Indiana defensively. Billings challenging Howard.
Is that she can impact it in every area of the game, and there's just not a lot of players in the league that can do that.
He's a 12-6 game here so far. Doing a good job. She hasn't picked up that 5th personal foul. Had 4 of them in the first half.
Stephanie White's offensive setup struggled to offer a true alternative when Caitlin Clark wasn't on the floor. There simply isn't another player who commands defensive attention in the same way she does, and without her shooting range stretching the floor, Indiana lacks a reliable secondary creator or a structured off-ball system that consistently generates open looks. Atlanta ultimately finished with 60 points in the paint, a number that reflects both their efficiency and Indiana's structural breakdowns on that end of the floor. It wasn't just about Atlanta executing. It was also about Indiana failing to make the necessary in-game adjustments to stabilize their defense as the game progressed.
Their view again, they scored 60 points in the paint. Just what was the breakdown, close to the basket there?
Yeah, I think in transition they got easy ones, and then I think they had, however many fast break points, 17. So that's, probably that right there contributed to it, and points off turnovers. And I thought a lot of times that's probably on us guards getting into the ball a little bit better, so we don't have to rotate. But I think we could have done a little bit better. We're gonna have to rotate at some point, and we kind of went back to our old ways where that second rotation we didn't get, and then they scored off the 90 cuts and the 45 cuts. So we got to do better in that area.
Stephanie White's post-game focus centered on ball movement, and in a limited sense, that point isn't wrong. Indiana did circulate the ball more effectively when Caitlin Clark was on the floor. The issue is that the same offense consistently stalled the moment she went to the bench. Framing it strictly as a ball movement problem ignores what the film actually shows. The system functions when Clark is playing and breaks down when she isn't, which points more towards structural dependency than individual fault. That's where the conversation gets complicated. White designed an offense that leans heavily on one primary creator, then watch that player spend significant stretches sidelined due to foul trouble, only to later attribute the offensive drop-off to rhythm and ball movement. After a game where Clark produced 26 points and 7 assists on 8 of 17 shooting, the post-game framing naturally raised eyebrows, even if her name wasn't directly mentioned in the critique. Instead, the discussion stayed on general terms: rhythm, spacing, ball movement, without directly addressing the specific sequences that changed the game. There was little emphasis placed on Indiana's 17 turnovers, the 60 points allowed in the paint, or the stretches where Clark's minutes were disrupted by questionable foul calls during key moments. By steering the narrative toward broad offensive concepts, the more uncomfortable details of how the game actually unfolded were left unspoken, even if everyone watching understood exactly which situations shaped the outcome.
Caitlin goes out in that fourth quarter early on. I think you guys were down about double digits, and you guys rally after that. What did you think of the response from the team, and specifically Aaliyah, who kind of was in the middle of everything there?
I thought it was great. I thought it was great. Teams are going to go on runs. We're going to have situations where we need everybody to step up, and we did. I thought that group really dug in on the defensive end of the floor, got stops. We rebounded it well, and we moved it on offense. We made it a little bit more difficult because the ball got side to side. We got some higher quality looks. And
that kind of framing feels less like frustration and more like a deliberate coaching narrative being set after the final buzzer. When your leading scorer delivers an elite performance, yet the conversation still shifts toward her as the central issue, that direction doesn't happen by accident, it's chosen. And it's not the first time Indiana's post-game storyline has circled back to Caitlin Clark in moments where other factors played just as large a role. But to be fair, the bigger picture of this roster deserves attention, because it doesn't match the simplified version often presented after losses. As for the ongoing conversation surrounding Angel Reese, fans continue to have strong opinions, with social media only amplifying the rivalry discourse every time these teams or storylines overlap. And with reactions growing louder online, the debate around perception versus performance isn't slowing down anytime soon.